I just love Ezra.
Hi. Whoa, hey, no, just saying hello.
That's it, that's the intro. I love Ezra. Welcome back to Rebels Revisited. In this episode, we're continuing with the spotlight on Sabine and her Mandalorian world. This is Legacy of Mandalore Revisited. The episode opens with Sabine, Ezra, Kanan, and Fen Rao landing on Crownest, the home of Sabine's family. Am I saying that right? Crownest? Whatever. I really like Crownest as a setting for this story. It's cold and austere, but it's also undeniably one of the most beautiful and regal settings that we've ever seen in the series, and I think that's a perfect way to set the tone. This episode spends its time unpacking the Wren family dynamics, which have their fair share of iciness to be sure, but also an unexpected warmth despite everything. And we get that right off the bat with Sabine's reunion with Tristan. There is a warmth there. The first thing Tristan does is make a joke about how she changed her hair. Sabine may be estranged, but they still kind of fall into step as siblings right away. The tension is still thick though, and it all makes for a dynamic that has a lot of contradictions, and we later see the same between Sabine and Ursa. I think that was a great approach to depicting the reunion between Sabine and her family. Speaking of Ursa, let's meet her.
What did you expect would happen here, Sabine? That you'd be welcomed with open arms? You're wanted by the Empire.
I know, but I'm part of the rebellion now. Please hear what I have to say.
Honestly, Sabine's reaction to seeing her brother and her mother again isn't really what you'd expect from her, or at least what you'd expect from her before now. She isn't really angry. She's not combative, and I think she would have been like that before, especially considering how facing her family and everything like that is confronting her greatest trauma. It's so clear how she really put the work in Trials of the Darksaber, and I just appreciate how that growth is showing so much in this situation. And that complex picture of the Wrens and Sabine's relationship to them is what ties this episode together. Nothing is without depth here. Like, Ursa didn't join the Empire because she wanted to or because she believed in the Empire. That would almost make it easier, you know, to be able to villainize her and say, you know, you're not Mandalorian at heart, and say, oh, she sided with the Empire because she sucks. But she sided with the Empire out of a desire to protect her family, which is a pretty sympathetic reason and also not entirely un-Mandalorian of her. Giving in to the Empire is kind of a disgrace to Mandalorian pride, but family, that's a core value. So this issue of family and the Empire and everything, all of this, it's just not black and white. And through the whole episode, I think Sabine, Tristan, and Ursa always feel like a family in a way that I wasn't really expecting given how Sabine was estranged. But there was always a familiarity between them and always a connection, you know? Somehow it felt like they just fell right back into their familial positions despite any resentment they held. And I'm really impressed by the way that the cast and the writers alike were able to communicate that and create that dynamic. And I think this complex dynamic is illustrated best in this scene where Ursa takes Sabine aside to speak with her one-on-one, and here's the end of that scene.
You even know how to wield that blade?
You'd be surprised.
Always so immature, so selfish.
Yeah, and what about you? Always putting power and politics before your own family?
Everything I do is to protect my family, Sabine.
Please, you do it for control.
And your father called me stubborn. Now I see it in you.
What do you see?
A warrior. Not the one I'd hoped, but still.
Well, I am your daughter. How could I be anything less?
They fight, they throw insults at each other, but then they immediately stop and they tenderly hold hands. And you can see it in Sabine's eyes, and the animators are just amazing. You can see the sadness and emotion in Sabine's eyes. You can see how she wishes things were different between her and Ursa. And I just love the conversation that happens there. It touches on the idea of a parent accepting a child for who they are rather than who they want them to be, and it acknowledges that Sabine is every inch Ursa's daughter, estranged or not. And just what a great scene. It's a great illustration of the complex dynamic going on here. Now, contrast that with how Kanan talks about Sabine in this scene.
You don't know what it's taken for her just to be here. You should listen to her.
She's a child.
I believe you're underestimating the woman she's become.
It's so evident how much Trials of the Darksaber changed Kanan's relationship with Sabine and changed his perception of her. So things start to go downhill when Ursa rats out Sabine to Saxon and he comes on the scene. Unsurprisingly, he betrays Ursa and decides to attack Clan Ren despite a deal they made where he said he wouldn't. I love Tristan. Poor naive Tristan.
Governor, wait. It doesn't have to be this way. We are all Mandalorians.
Tristan, it is so sweet that you think that. That's how things should be for sure, but unfortunately Saxon is not a Mandalorian, he's an Imperial, and that makes all the difference. The fight that subsequently breaks out is so cool and dynamic, you know? We've got all kinds of things going on here. We've got blasters firing from all directions, we've got lightsabers, we've got people on the ground, we've got people flying up in the air. We even have a Mandalorian fighting with a lightsaber. Would you even think you'd ever see that? It's probably one of my favorite fight sequences in the whole series. I think it's awesome. That fight leads into a one-on-one confrontation between Saxon and Sabine, which Ursa is hesitant to interfere in, but Kanan poses a very good question about that.
By Mandalorian custom and law, no one can interfere.
Are your customs more important than the life of your daughter?
Great question, Kanan, and I love that he's the one asking it. He comes from a culture that was pretty rigid about rules and customs, to the detriment of many, for sure, but Kanan doesn't stick to those rigid rules that would cause damage to himself or Ezra. Customs are not more important than their lives. And it is a matter of life and death. I mean, like, look at Anakin and all of the death that happened there. So Kanan really is the perfect person to be asking the same of Ursa. Do customs really override your humanity? Meanwhile, Sabine battles Saxon and bests him. Naturally, because she's the true Mandalorian at heart, and she gained a lot of inner strength in Trials of the Darksaber. So, you know, from a thematic standpoint, it's only right that she wins this one. But she refuses to kill Saxon, saying that's not how she rolls anymore, and that's because of the Ghost Crew. So that's the other family dynamic with Sabine that we see in this episode, her relationship to the Ghost Crew. Mending her relationship with her family, like with her blood family, is very important, but it's undeniable how warm and positive her relationship with the Ghost Crew is in comparison. They've helped her grow so much, and the Sabine that we see in this episode was very much shaped by her relationship to the Ghost Crew. She doesn't kill Saxon, you know? But you also can't deny, at the same time, that she is a Ren, and that she's absolutely a warrior like her mother and her brother. So, like, right there, in that fight, and in its resolution, you see how both of Sabine's families have influenced her. And it appears that Sabine isn't the only Ren the Ghost Crew has influenced. Ursa ends up interfering, and she kills Saxon where Sabine wouldn't, solidifying her loyalty to her family over the Empire, and even over custom. With Saxon defeated, it's time to wrap things up. Usually that would mean the Ghost Crew packs up and goes home, but Sabine decides to stay.
I'm done running away. My father's on Mandalore. We'll find a way to get him back. And then maybe we can join the fight against the Empire. But right now, I can do more good here.
I am so...
Do not say you're proud of me.
Me? Never. But I am going to miss you.
We all will.
Thank you. Both of you.
Oh, what a moment. I mean, first of all, the sheer amount of growth that Sabine has been through, like, here she is saying, I'm done running away. That's incredible. Running away from her past was all she ever did, and now she's choosing to not only face it head on, but to fight for it, all out of her, like, own volition, all of her own free will. She's she's remarkable, you know? Like, what a journey she's been on, man. I will say, this rewatch has given me a newfound, like, deeper understanding and appreciation of Sabine. I've always loved her. Of course, I've always loved her, but really, like, sitting down and analyzing her arc has changed the game for me, for sure. And the way that Kanan starts saying, "I'm so," like, those little words are full of so much. There's so much emotion right there, which really fills my heart, because Kanan has sort of struggled with how to respond to Sabine in the past, but here he really clearly and openly and deeply has a lot of affection for her. And I love moments like this for Kanan, where his hard edges just kind of melt away and you see how sensitive and emotional he really is on the inside. And their hug, man! That's one of the best hugs in the series. Top 3 Rebels hug right there. That's a great hug, especially because it shows how much their relationship has grown. They've grown a lot as individuals this season for sure, but they've grown together a lot too. Great episode, you guys. Great episode. I just love this one. Sabine is such a remarkable character, and I appreciate all the thought and love that went into developing her character. Her and her story are important to so many people, so healing for many. Sometimes, lots of times, like right now, I wish I could thank the Rebels crew for the story that they've created. They've helped so many people, and the more I revisit it, I just appreciate it even deeper, and I hope you guys feel the same. Thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you always.